other Marxist radicals that the way to transform the West lay not, as had been thought previously under communism, lay not through the seizure of political or economic control, but through the transformation of the culture. And that has been achieved over the past half-century, particularly in Britain, which is a highly secular, post-religious society. That's been achieved through what's been called the long march through the institutions. The infiltration into all the institutions of the culture, the universities, the media, professions, politics, civil service, even the churches, of ideas that would then become the orthodoxy, but which would undermine and destroy the bedrock values of Western civilization from the inside by capturing people's minds. From multiculturalism to the kind of environmentalism which says that mankind is a cancer on the planet, from post-nationalism, the idea that the nation is a bad thing, to international human rights doctrine, man-made human rights doctrine, Western progressives have fixated upon universalizing ideas which reject the values that are anchored in the particulars of biblical religion. The point about the values that we all hold dear is that they come from the Bible, they are particular to the Bible. Western liberals tell themselves these are nothing to do with the Bible is against all these ideas, that these things that we all value, freedom, etc., they're universal ideas. They are only to be carried by universal institutions and ideologies. And like all utopian projects which are by definition impossible and are unattainable, and the perfection of the world, I'm afraid to say, is unattainable by mankind, these dogmas, because they are impossible, they are enforced through coercion, through bullying, intimidation, character assassination, professional and social exclusion. And what they're enforcing, the core doctrine they're enforcing, sounds great. It's called equality. Who could be against equality? But this equality is not the biblical doctrine that every human being is owed equal respect because they're formed in the image of God. This equality, secular equality, has been redefined as what I would call identicality. The insistence that there can be no differences at all. There can be no hierarchy of values or lifestyles or cultures. You can't say that your values, your lifestyle is better than anyone else's. There can no longer be different outcomes depending on different circumstances or how people behave. To differentiate at all in outcomes is to be bigoted and on a fast track to fascism and war. That's what we're told. So, in accordance with this doctrine of equality, every value is the same, every lifestyle is the same, the married family was kicked off its perch. Sexual restraint was abolished. What was once frowned upon or even outlawed in sexual relations became the new normal. Education could no longer transmit Western culture down through the generations, which is what education is about. That's what it's about. It's about inducting the next generation into your culture. Education could no longer do this because to teach that the Western nation was worthy of teaching was itself innately racist and exploitative because the West is innately racist and exploitative. Feelings trumped facts and evidence. There was no longer any absolute truth. Everything was a matter of opinion. Everyone could arbitrate their own truth. You say that your facts trump my opinion. I'm sorry, there are no facts that trump my opinion. It's just your opinion. And your opinion is of equal worth to my opinion, except that I'm right. That's my opinion. And this way, apparently, we are told bigotry and prejudice will be excised completely from the human heart. The oppressed of the developing world will be freed from their Western oppressors, and instead of the Western nation, there'd be the brotherhood of man. Now, as I've tried to suggest, at the core of all these ideas and more lay an attack on Western values and the Western nation. This is innately exclusive of others and so is innately racist and oppressive. And because the Western nation is racist and oppressive, as I've said, it can't go to war on its own behalf. War has to be replaced by law. Anyone who says, for example, that war is necessary to defeat an unconscionable enemy, such as, to take a name out of a hat, Kim Jong-un, that person is him or herself a warmonger and a fascist. Kim Jong-un is the victim of anyone who wants to declare war on North Korea. War has been replaced by conflict resolution, peace processes and negotiation. Everyone, including Kim Jong-un, including the Iranian regime, which believes that it will bring the Muslim Messiah to earth if it produces the apocalypse, everyone is regarded as a rational actor amenable to reasoned self-interest, even if they are deranged fanatics. This is, of course, a profoundly irrational point of view. And all this has been done and said in the name of freedom, of reason and enlightenment, and in opposition to religion, the supposed source of oppression, irrationality and obscurantism. Now, the heart of all this has been the onslaught against the moral codes of Christianity, the moral codes of Christianity which underpin the West. Without Christianity, the West is nothing. But Christianity rests in turn on the moral codes of the Hebrew Bible. Jesus, after all, was a Jew. And it is Judaism, I would suggest, the mothership of Christianity, which laid down the moral law, which placed constraints upon personal behavior in the interests of others, and that was, at the time, a revolutionary creed. And that creed forms the very basis of Western morality. And although Christianity embedded those laws into Western society, it is those Mosaic codes themselves which are the real target of the onslaught upon sexual continence, duty and truth. Consider, for example, what Professor Richard Dawkins, the noted biologist and atheist, wrote in his book, The God Delusion, which I do hope you all have on your shelves. He wrote as follows: "The God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction. Jealous and proud of it, petty, unjust, unforgiving, control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser, a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully," close quote. And that was on God's good day. This near-pathological hatred is based on a wildly untrue, ignorant and perverse reading of the Hebrew Bible as a handbook of genocide, enslavement, world domination, racial exclusivism, whereas it is actually the origin of the doctrine of loving your neighbor as yourself and laying down codes of behavior that put the interests of others first. And that surely gets at the real reason for this hatred of biblical religion. Because in order to protect others, the moral laws of the Hebrew Bible and of Christianity put constraints on individual behavior in order to benefit the community. But the first commandment of the secular cultural revolution is to remove all constraints on the individual, whose own wants and desires and feelings are now deemed to trump all external rules. So biblical ideas and principles were replaced by man-made ideologies, man-made ideas. We call these ideologies because they are ideas which are given the status of unchallengeable doctrine. And it's worth taking a moment to think about what rule by ideology has done to our society. It's terribly important, because these just aren't just ideas that flow in the general discourse of ideas that can be argued against. These are different. Ideologies inescapably destroy reason itself. Why? Because ideologies reshape reality, which has to be made to fit their governing idea. Factual evidence or logic are an impediment to ideology, and without factual evidence or logic, there can be no exercise of reason. The point is that the idea carries all before it. Whatever the idea is in this ideology, it is considered to be synonymous with virtue and the perfection of the world, so it cannot have any argument. Anyone who argues against it is not just wrong, they're basically evil, because they're against the perfection of the world. So if you can't adduce facts or evidence against an idea,